the roll call, please.
Chairperson Claire Folsom.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Bob McCool.
Here.
Commissioners Rita Dozell.
Here.
Joanne Eaton.
Here.
Paul Sergeant Jr. Robert Beaumont.
Here.
Michelle Ritmaster.
Here.
Tom Becker. Jim Sawtrell. County Manager Beth Moisky. Attorney Liz Cross. Planner Brett Fox.
Here. Okay, thank you. Before we dive into the agenda, I'd like to formally welcome our newest Planning Commission member, Ms. Rita Dozell.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Planning Commission. Look forward to working with you.
Great. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. Next, we have public comment on consent agenda or non-agenda items. Anyone in the audience like to speak on consent agenda or non-agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along to the discussion and approval of the 2014 Planning Commission work plan. Have any staff presentation comments on this?
In your packet is the 2013 actually work plan that's been basically, there's a number of things that we did there. There's a few things that we did not. And so what's left in black is about what we came up with. The idea is if any of you have any other ideas about what you might want to tackle this year besides what's in here in black, or any modifications to those items that are in black.
Okay.
That's it.
Who would like to start? And one little housekeeping item, if we could. If you could give me a little hand signal that you'd like to speak. Our staff does a really good job of trying to transcribe our comments, and sometimes we are so anxious to talk, we talk over each other, and they have challenges with that. And so if you could give me a little wave, I'll identify you by name, and then you can speak, and that will help make our written record of our meetings more accurate and clear. Okay, who would like to dive in? Commissioner Sawtrell.
Just a question, Fred, on the item 2 in the work plan where it speaks to review and comment on major capital improvement projects, i.e. road infrastructure, et cetera. Is that intended to encompass the transportation plan?
Yes, it does. That, and then any other major public improvement that is proposed or on the budget calendar that needs Planning Commission review is also any major public improvement in the municipality.
Okay. That's so. Okay. Commissioner Dozell?
Yes, I had read with great excitement all the information that Mr. Fox gave me. And one was the role number 4, which is coordination with other planning commissions. And I was wondering if it would make sense to include as one of our 2014 work plans to understand what's happening with other planning commissions, around us, whether it's Boulder County, Louisville, or Broomfield, particularly since almost everything that we talk about has some impact on what's happening in those towns. The streets and the transportation plan even reference some of those. So I was wondering if it makes sense to add that as one of our work plan items to, I don't know how that happens, but it was just interesting that role number 4 is coordination with other planning commissions, and that might be a good thing to do.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, we could put that in there.
Okay. And I thought about Louisville, particularly when we talk about like the bridge, the connection to Campus Drive, which, it might be interesting to have a conversation with them about how they feel about that and what their plans are. And then some of their other community activities and things that they're considering on the other side. And then the DEI, the diamond and all that kind of stuff. So, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I would just add that Louisville gets a referral from the town on activities related to the town center.
Excuse me.
So I'm not sure if we've got much comment back yet on anything that we've given to them to review, but they may, they have in the past, but in relationship to, I think, the housing component of the town center. but that's usually at the manager level. So we can think about how this might work. And maybe one of the first ones would be with Louisville, because we are shipping our referrals for the town center to them.
Okay.
Okay?
Anyone else have any questions, comments? Commissioner Nestor.
So I have a question about striking through, like, planning commissioners review and comment on the transportation plan, and what I think is intended, but it's coming across strangely to me, is what comes out of the transportation plan will then be a set of ongoing activities throughout 2014, 2015, and so it kind of, now, it should be made clear that we continue to be involved in the various phases of each of these items that will spin out.
I know what you're saying. We took a little more simplistic view to that, in the sense that we were reviewing comment on the transportation plan as a document. Well, we're doing that tonight, and we're going to be hopefully done with that before 2014, so we kind of thought, we didn't think, go beyond and go as far as you were thinking. And so what you're saying is a good idea. It should maybe then be rephrased to say, work on implementation elements of the transportation plan.
That sounds
fine.
good. Yeah, that sounds real good. Thanks. I'm just concerned that, we always need additional levels of public ability to come in front of people, because no matter what we do and how we notify, everything always comes up as a surprise, right? And so it's that yet another layer of public input, and then, of course, our eyes and ears on that.
Anyone else? Any comments? I have a comment/question about Jefferson Parkway. We've got Jefferson Parkway on the work plan. We had it on the work plan for 2013. Didn't do a whole lot on it. The town board has spent several executive sessions doing something with the Jefferson Parkway, but I don't know what they're doing. And I think before we do anything, we should get some direction from the town board. A, what are they doing? And B, what do you want us to be doing? Because I think for us to be doing anything else, we're kind of driving without a map.
Good point.
I know there's an upcoming joint meeting, dinner in the works between Planning Commission, Town Board, and I think that would probably be a logical opportunity to bring that up and try to get some direction from them.
Okay.
So I guess we leave it on here, but before we do much on it, I would like some more direction on that. Yes, comment from Alex.
Alex Arenal, Public Works Director. I just want to mention one item that we've been involved in through Dr. Cog. It's a study called the Sustainable Communities Study that's looking at the US 36 corridor and other fast track stations, and looking at how can you develop sustainable communities focused on transit stations. So staff has been not party, but we've reviewed information, provided information to that group. They have looked for other community members, if anybody's interested in participating. They've been asking for other non-staff members. So, but I think that may be something that you may want to add to your work plan, that at some point they'll have some recommendations. In fact, I do have a set of recommendations coming out of that group that you might want to look at and see if it applies to Town Center or Superior Marketplace. It's really looking at redevelopment opportunities to develop transit-oriented communities. So I'm not sure if that's on there, but it's...
No, it's not. We can get information from you. We can pass that on to you.
Okay. That's a good idea. Okay, should we wrap up our discussion on the work plan? Is everybody good with the list? I know we added a couple of items. You want to reiterate
Yes,
repeat the items that we added?
Yeah, it's, trying to figure out how to maybe try to entertain some coordination with other PC planning commissions in the region, basically Boulder County, Boulder, Louisville, maybe even Broomfield. And in relation to such topics as campus drive connection, for instance, with Louisville, also the town center with Louisville, and try to maybe over the course of the year have joint sessions with them or discussions with them on various topics. The other one is implementation of the transportation plan, assuming the Planning Commission recommends that the board approve this, that we would want then continuing discussions about those implementing different aspects of the plan as we go along. Need to discuss need to elaborate on this Jefferson Parkway item where we need an update on the status of this with the town and then what the Planning Commission should be doing in relationship to this. Possibly even if there's a committee at some point or somewhere, or maybe the Planning Commission can have a member, sort of a liaison member or something that could help keep track of that. That'd be an idea of my own, but. And then on this, the transit station studies you were talking about.
Sustainable communities study.
Sustainable communities study, but it's related mostly to transportation, is it not? So it's, we need to get, the Planning Commission would like to get familiar with this in some way. So. That's what I had.
Okay, sounds good. Does anyone have any other items? Okay. Do we need to vote on this or just wave our hands and move on?
Well, I just generally see if you have a consensus.
Okay. Let's have a hand raise if you're good with the work plan as discussed here tonight. Okay, we're unanimous. Okay. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, discussion and approval of the transportation plan.
Alex Arnello, Public Works Director, and we're returning with the transportation plan, and I'll refresh the Commission's memory about what you had done last time. We discussed this back in December of 2012, and at that time, the Commission made various recommendations, and I'll review those with you as I go through this. Then we went to town board on December 18th, and at that time, it was part of the comprehensive plan, the whole comprehensive plan. And the board decided to adopt the goals and policies from the transportation plan, but they deferred adoption of the plan because they felt that it needed to go through a more extensive community meeting process. And so we stepped back and went through early part of this year, an extensive meeting process, and I'll describe that in a minute. After that process, we went to the Traffic and Safety Committee in March. We had a town board work session in April, and so there were a number of changes, and we needed to make changes to the plan. And as you recall, that's when Town Center PD hit. We had all those hearings, and then we had the DDI, and then we went to the summer construction season. So apologize, we didn't get back to the transportation plan until this past month. I wanted to have the Traffic and Safety Committee review it before it came to you. We had a little scheduling issue, so they just reviewed it yesterday, and actually they didn't review it. I just showed them their original comments and how I incorporated them in the draft. Tonight we'll have a review here, and if you're uncomfortable proceeding, we could have another meeting where we can incorporate any comments you might have tonight. And then we're scheduled for the town board on the 13th, and that may take a couple meetings. So that's where we're at. Also, what happened during this hiatus, I guess, we approved the town center and there were a number of planning issues and road connections that came out of that, including the Campus Drive. So we were able to incorporate all those into the next draft of the plan. In terms of public outreach, we had a series of public meetings, first with the business community in late January. We had a meeting focusing in our regional superior, then a meeting focusing on Rock Creek. We also had a survey out on the web asking for input, and we recorded a number of comments that we got from that survey. So I want to kind of take you through some of the public meetings and some of the input we heard during that time, and then I'll explain how we incorporated that input from the Planning Commission and from the board. So meeting one focused on Original Superior, looked at the DDI interchange, Marshall-McCaslin intersection, 75th Street, Cold Creek Drive, and truck traffic on Sycamore. Meeting two was held down at the fire station and really focused on the Rock Creek area, looked at roundabouts and looked at McCaslin corridor vision. The Planning Commission consensus, some of the comments, Chief, that came out of your meeting last December, in terms of roundabouts, we're generally in favor of roundabouts in Indiana, Rock Creek Parkway, and the town center on McCaslin. You generally favored the concept of medians for the McCaslin corridor, but they weren't as high a priority as roundabouts. Generally not in favor of additional roundabouts on Rock Creek Parkway, and you asked for an examination of data on the town's existing roundabouts, as well as level of service for various intersections, and we'll present some of that data tonight. The summary of the public comments, the Survey Monkey had 54 respondents, 31 residents prior to when we asked for where they were located, so we could know what kind of comments, where they were coming from in terms of the location. Business meeting, we had 9 attendees, and at the community meetings, we had a total of 48 attendees. Sorry you can't read this, but we captured a lot of the comments on sticky notes related to various traffic concerns, and if you want this map, we can provide it in bigger format. But I'll go over a lot of those comments as I go through. In Original Superior, these are some of the issues we discussed, and then I'll be covering all these issues as I step through the presentation. So, in Original Superior, one of the major issues there, and continues to be an issue, is the Marshall-McCaslin intersection. That's other than the interchange, it's our highest volume intersection in the town. And we had developed, I don't know if you've probably seen this in one form or the other, but we developed an ultimate plan for the intersection, looking at the DDI, how it relates to the DDI, the traffic coming in and out of the town center, and general growth in the traffic as indicated in the traffic volumes that are in the plan. And so one of the things that we want to do in terms of coordinating with the DDI is that in terms of bike facilities, there are bike lanes on McCaslin south of Marshall, there are bike lanes on McCaslin north of the interchange, and with the DDI, we're going to be adding bike lanes across the bridge on the interchange, on the bridge. But we don't have bike lanes in the stretch between Marshall and the interchange. So one of the things we wanted to do was to move this curb line out, move the pole, and provide a bike lane on this side, and we also already have room for a bike lane on the west side. So that's one of the things that we'll be doing kind of in the interim, because the DDI, limits of the DDI come down here. In the short term, we're going to be moving this curb, moving the pole, so we can have continuous bike lane facilities on Marshall through the entire corridor. So that's kind of the short term. For the longer term, as the town center develops, we'll be needing a double left turn lane, southbound double left turn lane from McCaslin onto Marshall going eastbound. Again, the DDI is going to be making some improvements right about this area, and in fact, you'll be seeing the existing median being removed within the next couple of months. Construction starts in February. One of the first things they're going to do is to remove that median so they can have lane shifts and be able to start shifting lanes over so they can do construction and then shifting lanes back as they complete it. So this median comes out, and I've been working with CDOT to, instead of putting back the landscape median, to put back a Skinner median so we can have a double left turn lane all set up for the town center. So that'll kind of complete this approach, and hopefully we'll have new pavement and all look good to coordinate with the DDI. Replacing this pole also will have a longer pole, so we'll be able to extend out here and provide a double left turn movement northbound from McCaslin onto Marshall. Right now, the most significant safety issue we have is that we have left-turning vehicles that are crossing 3 lanes of traffic, and at times when they have permitted operation, when they get the green ball instead of a green light, they're crossing, they're misjudging the 3 lanes, and they're getting hit. So we're having a lot of left turning, hitting southbound. That's our biggest issue right now. Town managers told me to go and solve it. One of the easiest ways to solve it is to make this left turn a protected operation, which means it gets a red arrow. So you come up there, you only can make the turn on the green arrow. And other times it's a red arrow. Right now it's green arrow and then green ball. And people are misjudging the distance. The other thing we can do is, as you've seen in Boulder and other areas, is go to a flashing yellow operation. That's another possibility. So we're about be evaluating that in terms of how to do it. If we go to double left turn, most likely we'll go to a protected operation because you have 2 side-by-side vehicles, you have visibility issues and so forth. So you'll probably be seeing that within the next 6 months. When we move a single pole, we may convert to a flashing yellow. I haven't decided yet, but that could be something that's coming. So that'll be the improvements. Double left here, we'll have double left here. We'll have bike lanes here. Now we talked about triple left, and I'll explain how we're doing it on here. One way we could do it is by adding another lane along the south side of Marshall and provide a slip lane near Conoco to provide an additional lane, so the existing right turn lane would become a through lane, and then we would have the 3 through lanes. One way we can do it. This starts to become expensive. I had actually developed a grant for all these improvements through CDOT, through the RAMP program, if you had heard of that, and did not get funded. So we're back to kind of, well, what do we do now? I have a certain amount of money, I can do this, but I can't do all this. So I don't know when the triple left turn lane's coming, but that's one of the issues. And I think we've talked about it at Planning Commission on a number of occasions. So once we figure out how to implement it, but we'll do this approach first, we'll maybe do the double left turn lane. And then as the town center develops, if we need a double left turn lane on this approach, we could do that. And finally, eventually, we want to have 3 through lanes going northbound through the intersection. Right now, there's 2 through lanes. So to provide a little more capacity in here and coordinate it with the DDI, we'll need another through lane in that location. So just to preclude there, but I wanted to share some of the things that may happen. I'm not sure if that needs to come back, because you've probably seen this several times before. Concerns from the original Superior residents: the intersection is not pedestrian friendly. It should not become a massive concrete. Its original Superior egress and access should be considered, and we should maintain a gateway appearance. I don't know what the gateway appearance is. That's beyond my expertise in terms of a transportation engineer, but maybe the planners can help me. One thing I want to just broach a subject. We're putting the underpass to the DVI up here. And so we'll have an underpass, and we'll have a connection to the town center. I'm thinking about eliminating this crosswalk and providing that movement up at the TDI, or having crossing here, because when this crosswalk comes on, you're interfering with this heavy movement, you're interfering with this heavy movement, and so forth. So just approach it, don't know how many people do that, but that'll help the operations. But of course, I'm sacrificing pedestrian access in terms of vehicle operations, but I want you to be aware of that. That may be something we come back to later. There were comments about 76th Street truck restrictions, where the trucks idle, and this is really around the Superior Marketplace, how do they get in and out? Should they use Sycamore? Should they use 76th Street? The whole 76th Street corridor, we have a lot of excess pavement out there. What can we do with that? I'll show you a plan here in a minute. There was concern about Coal Creek traffic, whether to provide restrictions on Coal Creek because of a lot of through traffic that uses that facility. On 76th Street, we wanted to add discussion about the improvements north of Sagamore. Right now, we just made improvements here along Guardian, it's that old photo. And we want to continue those improvements up to Marshall and then make the improvements here so we have a complete street all the way. Restripe from Sagamore, consider on-street bike lanes and on-street parking. So this is a plan that we're including in the plan to restripe. So we have like 52 feet of pavement in this section along Sagamore, and basically the pavement was there because originally this was going to extend down and connect over to McCaslin, and before all the open space was bought up, there was a lot of development that could occur. Well, that's not going to happen now. We don't really need 4 lanes on 76th Street. So one suggestion here is in this section to have a striped or a raised median, maybe a raised landscape median, provide a parking lane along the park to provide access to the ball fields, provide a little more parking in this area. We don't really need parking along Sagamore, so I'm not proposing any parking there, but provide bike lanes on each side, 2 travel lanes, a raised median, landscaping. Provide a median through the intersection of Sagamore and 76th Street with pedestrian refuges, and maybe convert that to a 4-way stop. North of this, we would transition to this section where we have a wide median, bike lanes and travel lanes, and then as we get north of where Guardian, the section at Guardian is about 36 feet, where we just have the 2 travel lanes and bike lanes. So that's included in the plan, and then, of course, we would go through a planning process if we ever get to the point of actually implementing. Coal Creek Drive, near Town 9 Park. As you know, the Coal Creek Crossing development is planned, and that may be breaking ground fairly soon. And as part of their approval, they were required to build the south half of Coal Creek, from about where 5th would come out to 76th Street. And the plan was to have similar improvements that you have on Coal Creek east to McCaslin. On the north side, we kind of have a rural section, and we don't need all the pavement we wanted to straighten out the curve. First of all, there's this kink in Coal Creek. So in straightening that out, most of the improvements end up along south of where the existing road is. So we wanted to narrow the road, provide on-street parking, provide bulb outs for the intersections, similar to what we have in the other part of original Superior. What that ends up with is this landscape strip. It's pretty wide, 25, 30 feet, between the roadway and the Town 9 Park. So this is kind of initial landscape concept, And if you want, I can come back and we can discuss this further at some point, but this is something that could be going next year in terms of improvement. We're hoping to work with the developer where the town would fund the improvements on the north side, but all these improvements would be done at the same time, so it's all one project. And then we would provide the landscaping, some of the connections, and this kind of says, well, do we need that wider strip? Do we want to relocate some of the sidewalk out there? So another concept that we're including that could come back to you next year. What that results in, once we have this completed, right now we don't have any formal parking along Coal Creek and vicinity of town, of Fountains Park, but we have a lot of activity down there. And we have drainage issues and so forth. But this kind of depicts, once we get the bulb outs and the parking, how much parking we have, and we would end up with 92 parallel parking spaces, and 79 of those spaces would be adjacent to the park. There would be 54 diagonal spaces, those mainly are the ones here. And so we looked at all this parking, and we had all this room over here, and the question was, do we need diagonal parking on the north side of Coal Creek? And we decided there was enough parking around here that we really didn't need diagonal parking that parallel parking would do. So we kind of made that decision, so we're proceeding along those lines. And again, if you want the actual plan to come back as we finalize it, we could bring that to you. Another issue for Original Superior was floodplain mitigation and access to the southern part of Original Superior. This part of Superior only has one access on 2nd Avenue with the bridge over Coal Creek. They used to have two accesses. 3rd Avenue used to go through. That culvert was wiped out 68, 69, whenever that. So it's been a while since they've had a second access. So these people have complained we need to do something, and we saw what happened with the flood in September, that Coal Creek overtopped. I thought I was going to lose that bridge, but it stayed in place. But for a day, you couldn't cross that bridge safely, and so these people were stranded without access. Our backup plan that didn't work, we felt there was a private drive here that if we had an emergency, we would get in there, cut the gate, and use this. This is passable, but we didn't realize that that portion wasn't passable. And so our backup plan in this case failed. But we are proceeding with trying to acquire this property, so we would have that, and we would improve this access, so this would be the emergency access. This is probably no longer, there was talk of putting an underpass here for vehicles. As we went through the planning process, this is no longer probably feasible. This is the location of the roundabout, which is planned for a fourth leg that could come through the old Rogers property. It's now changed hands, and provide another access here. We are planning on replacing this bridge so it can carry the 100-year storm. We started the planning process for that. That's another public improvement that you may see in the future, because we're in the design process now. We're looking at culverts versus bridges, the type of structure, how that's going to be mitigated in terms of floodplain. You won't probably see the floodplain. Well, we're developing a floodplain mitigation plan for this entire reach, but the first phase will be replacing the bridge. So that's a public improvement that you'll be seeing next year. Put that on your list.
Just a quick clarification.
But as we went through,
Excuse me, Alex.
Just a quick clarification. The property that you're looking to acquire, how's that being labeled? Whose property is that? Just so we can.
Shinchan.
Shinchan. That's what I thought.
So there are a number, I think you were privy to some of the discussions we had of whether we should put another bridge here, one access, how to provide access. We went through that process. We asked a question on the survey. We had 4 options: replace the existing bridge, construct a new bridge, a third, and leave the existing 2nd Avenue bridge in place, construct a new bridge at 3rd, and remove the existing 2nd Avenue bridge. 4, construct a new bridge at 3rd, and widen 2nd Avenue Bridge. So we had 4 options. These were the responses we had. 6 favored just replacing 2nd Avenue Bridge. 4th said we should do both, build a 3rd Avenue Bridge as well as widen 2nd Avenue Bridge. So that's the responses we got from the survey. I think the board was generally in favor of replacing the 2nd Avenue Bridge now. They're not ruling out eventually putting a 3rd Avenue Bridge in, but they felt that's really down the road based on the available resources. They first want to replace the 2nd Avenue Bridge. Second, they want to do flood mitigation improvements through the channel, and then maybe way down the road, maybe they will consider a 3rd Avenue Bridge. Okay, roundabouts, and I guess we're getting into the Rock Creek portion of the community meetings. Planning Commission, these are some comments you had last December, generally in favor of roundabouts at Indiana, Rock Creek Parkway, and the town center, but they need to be individually examined as, when we're ready to make those improvements. You were generally not in favor of roundabouts on Rock Creek Parkway. We prefer to see other ideas for pedestrian safety. Public comments, there's several, they're all over the place. Too many, yes, put more, so forth. I like this, we did have a comment about roundabouts. I like this response because as a roundabout advocate, I see it 2-to-1 in favor of at least some roundabouts. So, but there are a lot of naysayers that they've had enough of roundabouts. So take that into account as we go through, and we've kind of modified our plan based on the response we got. And we took some of the roundabouts out. As you recall, we had a vision for McCaslin where we had some roundabouts and then we had some really wide medians to try to put design controls into McCaslin to attempt to reduce the design speed so we can get lower speeds. The Planning Commission was generally in favor of the medians, then felt they was high priority as roundabouts. We took this concept of the medians, wide medians in the McCaslin vision, and the survey results were a lot of people liked what we had proposed. There was along with what is appropriate for McCaslin, including discouraging through traffic with lower speeds, traffic calming, and increased pedestrian friendliness. But a bunch said, no, we shouldn't do it. So those are responses we got, kind of a mixed response to that whole concept. We also had comments, they wanted noise abatement, don't change unless you're receiving significant number of requests, waste of money, lower speeds within reason, use rumble strips, you need traffic calming. What we decided to do on the roundabouts, the board didn't seem, on the medians, the board didn't seem to be enthusiastic about that, so we've taken the concept of the wider medians out. We've taken the roundabout out at Rock Creek Parkway, but we've left the one at Indiana and the one 128th, and essentially leaving the roundabout, the McCaslin as it is now. We did add notes about looking at noise mitigation around Christensen and around Indiana. Do some noise studies to see if there's anything we could do to mitigate some of the noise in those areas. So that's...
Okay, can I make a quick question around if there were a study done around a roundabout at Highway 128, given that that's a state highway, does that then go through some other level of review and comment because it's actually a state highway?
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we would have to request...
Do we border with Jeffco right there? So
I think
That
it's...
is in Jefferson County.
Hmm?
That area is.
That area's in Jefferson County, but it's still within the town, right?
okay.
So we may have to work with Jefferson County. But I've had some preliminary discussions with CDOT. I mean, there's the roundabout advocates at CDOT say, yeah, we've thought about that location. But they're certainly not in the leadership role, so.
But it's just it's a very difficult intersection because of the steep grade coming to it from McCaslin, on McCaslin, which is quite different than how most roundabouts can really be laid out and you have visibility and things like that. So-
Right, and the real critical thing about grades at roundabouts, you don't want to have the actual roundabout steeper than 3 or 4%, because you risk overtopping of large vehicles, so you have to have a platform.
And it does get windy there.
But, so you have to have it flat, but you can have a steep approach grade as long as you have a table that flattens out. And I think maybe by pushing that roundabout further to the south, you may be able to get that kind of platform. The thing about that location is that it's a state highway, but there's very few through movements. There's a lot of movements from Superior going left and coming the other way going right. So there's a lot of turning movements there, where roundabouts are more effective, where there's a lot of turning movements. And right now, you have the single time for the through traffic on 128, which isn't a major movement. So it would be a good location for it. Some public transit comments that we heard from the public, and we try to take into account. The fourth bullet, consider the town shuttle. We heard from the TSC last night about a town shuttle, and I'll present some of the language that they've suggested. Bicycle and pedestrian needs. Difficult to get from Rock Creek, go to the shops along McCaslin. Hopefully that'll be addressed as the town center is built. We have some connectivity through the town center. Walking along McCaslin, obviously we have the speed issues on McCaslin, and it's not a pleasant environment to walk along. Of course, problems around the schools. Make the RTD bridge more accessible for bikes, and we've heard that several times. Neighborhood electric vehicles, whatever, we didn't include anything, right?
They're still in one of the policies.
In the policies, right. We don't have an actual plan, and I think as we have more town centers built and we have some routes that actually make sense, we'll probably revisit it, but we do have policies about it. And by the way, that was one of the issues that came up during the design of the DDI. As you recall, as you know, the DDI is into the design process, so it's moving very fast. And we have a design-build team on board, and they're coming up with suggestions to save money. So one of the suggestions they had was on the underpass at McCaslin, they wanted to reduce the width from 18 feet to 14 feet. And the reason why is that they wanted to do it with precast sections, and they only came in 14-foot segments. They can go wider, but it would be cast in place, which means it takes longer to do cast in place versus your precast and drop them in. So they came to us and said, hey, would you go for this? And so I actually negotiated a deal to get the improvements that I talked about on the east side of McCaslin. I said, well, if you build one of those, maybe we can support this. So I worked out a deal, went to the town board and they said, no, we want that wider box. And the reason was for visibility and also for the possibility of neighborhood electric vehicles using that box down the road. So that's where they came from, and we still have the 18-foot wide box in there. Okay. Going back, I think the commission had asked for this. What's the level of service now on intersections throughout town? And for traffic engineer people, we kind of grade our intersections based on congestion, with level service A being uncongested, you can travel whatever speed you want. Level service F is kind of gridlock, you can't move. Normally, if you look at traffic signals, if you're the last car coming up to a signal and you don't make the signal and you have to wait through another cycle and don't make it through the next cycle, then you're probably at level service E and you're at capacity. But if you're the last car there, and you easily make it through the next one, so that's level service D, E, so forth.
So define D again, because I don't see McCaslin and Marshall being identified.
No, it says excluding Marshall and McCaslin.
Oh, I see, okay.
There are several movements on Marshall and McCaslin that are D and E.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And D, normally if you have to wait more than a minute, you're probably crossed into the D range. Okay.
I was waiting more than that.
And a lot of times, what happens on your minor movements, especially at the ramps, we have a 110-second cycle, or 100-second cycle. So the side roads, normally they're going to have to wait more than a minute. So they have level of service D or E, just because the cycle length is so long. But you really want to look at areas where you're not getting through and the intersections are backing up into each other. So the red arrows indicate the intersections that have level of service D in the morning. So one of them was the ridge, getting out of the ridge on High Plains, turning left or right. It was very difficult. Hopefully we've solved that with the new traffic signal that we put in. In the evening, this is blue, in the evening going northbound, we had level of service D, and the reason why is because we have a heavy southbound movement, we have a lot of traffic coming out here, and a lot of traffic turning left, so that becomes a heavy movement. Up at the marketplace, some of the minor movements, because of the long cycle lengths, have level of service D. Coal Ridge, it's hard to make a left in the evening. Coming out of Shamrock, it's hard to make a left in the morning.
Could you explain that one at Rock Creek Parkway again, the PM?
You have a heavy southbound movement. So you have a lot of time going southbound and a heavy left turn. A lot of people coming home in the evening, going to Rock Creek, so we got to provide a lot of time for the left turn and a lot of time for the southbound. We also have traffic exiting from the office park here.
Right.
So in order to serve all those movements, that northbound movement kind of gets sacrificed and they end up being delayed a lot.
Which is getting delayed?
Northbound.
I've been...
Northbound through.
The northbound through.
Because people are trying to make lefts, they have to give them more time, so they have to sit and wait for a lot of people turning left onto Rock Creek Parkway. So
I see.
northbound have to sit and wait longer.
Okay.
Right? Is it?
Just how it calculates out.
But I don't know if people missing the light because of that.
No, but if you're at level service D, you just got to
You gotta wait.
wait a minute. You have to wait a minute until you get serviced again.
So, and I know that, I guess technically this isn't in the town of Superior, but the left onto, which, on even the converging diamond, I'm kind of curious how this is going to get handled. But I don't know who's in control of the light access onto 36 in the morning.
We are.
In the last 2 months, I mean, that's obviously changed. There's been a delay there. I'm assuming to allow 36 to flow a little bit better, we're really backing up the entrance ramp. And that's not mentioned here, and it's definitely a D, E, F, the third level type of issue, because, I mean, we're causing backup. I mean, there are times we can't turn left off of Marshall even because of the delay getting onto 36. It's backed up literally through 3-4 lights.
Yeah, to Marshall.
And that doesn't appear to be, and I don't know if maybe you're going to discuss that later, but it's...
I can add that to this map. This map really isn't going into the transportation plan, but I do have that data, and I can maybe supply it to the planning commission and even present it to the town board when I go to them. I have that data up here, and probably for older counts. I don't know if anything's changed recently. There may be some, I don't know if the constructions, because I know it's been happening
This
recently.
happened before the construction. That light cycle getting onto the highway has gone up to about 10 seconds, I think it is now, per.
Is it the ramp meter?
Yeah, the ramp meter. Do we control that, or is that controlled by state?
The ramp meter is controlled by CDOT.
Okay, yeah, so they've changed that. Do we get notified when that happens, or do they just do it?
Maybe they just did it. It's supposed to sense where that ramp is backing up, and if it's backing up into the intersection, it's supposed to allow that to reduce that cycling.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Okay.
The last 2 months, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, there have been times that we, after waiting a minute and more for the green light, if you're in that left of the left, you're often stuck. You can't.
Well, you're
can't
something
go.
stopped on Marshall too, because it's gotten back. I mean, this
Yes.
isn't every day. This is probably, but it's probably once a week.
Yeah, during certain times,
Yeah.
it'll be some confluence of events, but yeah, you can't even really progress off Marshall.
Yeah, and you can't make the left onto the ramp. You just sit and wait through a light, but something's
I'll
happened.
look into the rent meter, because I've noticed that recently. I
Something
know it was
changed.
going on for that long.
Yeah.
Okay, you asked also about accident data, because with my roundabout statistics and write-up, I talked about national studies. You wanted to know, well, what are our roundabouts doing? And in fact, what are all our intersections doing? And so we went back and looked at accidents that have been occurring the last couple of years. And the way we try to measure accidents is not the total number of accidents, but in this case, the accidents per million vehicle miles. So this is an accident rate. And kind of smooths out, so you have a good comparison between various intersections. So these are the rates, and normally if you're under 1, you're pretty good accident rate. So up at the marketplace, we have intersections that are 1 or above, and Marshall-McCaslin probably has more accidents than any other location in the city, but because there's so much traffic going through there, accident rate is just under 1. This surprised me. 88th and Rock Creek, that's a roundabout, and that's over 1. All the other intersections along Rock Creek are doing pretty good. Even Rock Creek Parkway and McCaslin is doing pretty good. Colton and Rock Creek Parkway is pretty high. Again, another roundabout that's a little high. And then here's the 128th McCaslin intersection. All right, so Alex, what are you saying? Roundabouts you say are good, right? All right, well,
What's the severity?
all right, so then I did this, all right. How are the injury accidents relating to the total accidents? So notice where the red are injury accidents, and this is kind of a proportion of total accidents. That's what the pie kind of means. So here, half of the accidents at Rock Creek Parkway and Colton were injury accidents. So look where the reds are. Traffic signal, 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 traffic signal. Roundabout, roundabout. So this is really why I'm in favor of roundabouts. Not that they reduce total accidents, because you're going to have the fender bender, and you're going to have people that aren't paying attention and so forth. But it's the non-severe accidents. We're not getting the injury accidents at our roundabouts. And at the singles, and especially at this one, we get some pretty severe injury accidents. So I want to present that data. And I was surprised too that the accident rate was higher at the roundabouts than I suspected. I think what's happening is people have gotten used to the roundabouts, and they're just plowing through there. It was before, when they first went in, they were kind of, what's these things all about? And they took larger gaps and whatever. Now they're moving through. And
Alex, the fact that we have a double lane roundabout, is that more of an issue? It seems a little more challenging, the roundabout that.
Sure.
Rock Creek.
Multi-roundabouts are generally a little higher accident rates than the single-lane roundabouts. In our case, I don't think it was that significantly different.
Oh, true.
So, but we'll continue to monitor these, and I'm starting to build up the accident database, and once I have 4 or 5 years, because a lot of these, we don't get too many accidents at these intersections. And generally, if you look at our accidents compared with other entities, we are so low in terms of accident rates and number of accidents compared with any other municipality. In fact, I don't think we've ever had a fatality within the town. And I could be mistaken, or at least in the last 10 years that I know of. I think we had one out on 128 out here, but I'm not sure that was in the town.
Hey, Alex, I have the roundabout on 88th and Rock Creek Parkway, I'd be curious if the majority of the accidents are coming from 88th coming into Rock Creek Parkway, because I tell you, I've been almost hit there so many times.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are the rear enders.
Right
They're
there.
coming in, that
Yeah.
they don't know, is the car going to go in or not? And the car stops and someone comes behind them and
Well,
expects them
from
to.
88, they think they can come in because it's the two lanes, even though it says yield very clearly. They see that car coming around, they don't think it's going to go on to Rock Creek Parkway, which is where I'm always coming around, and I'm holding my breath every time I go in there. I like the two-lane roundabout, actually, because it gives you more opportunity to move away, but at that one, I'd be curious if most of the accidents are happening from the people coming south on from 88, trying to get into the roundabout. And, I don't know if you have that kind of data.
Oh, yeah.
about it. And then the other one is the McCaslin and Marshall Road. I'm one of those statistics because someone pulled left in front of me, clearly, but you've got the death merge there, what I call the death merge, coming off of 36, and then everybody coming over 36, and nobody knows where to go. And now if you add a bike lane in there, I'm really worried about that. So I'd almost say, I'm sorry, but forgo the bike lane, that you were proposing in there. You know what I'm talking about on the earlier slide? That's a death merge there. It's so...
Well, the merge is going away.
Yeah.
And with the DDI, when you're coming off US 36, the ramp coming off, will now be a 3-lane exit lane will have a stoplight control. So it'll be stopped, so you can no longer merge. So the traffic coming over the bridge has a green light, that turns red, and then the traffic coming off the ramp goes. So there's no longer going to be a merge. And then the bikes will be going, southbound, they'll be going with the light and going first before the traffic coming off the ramp comes over. There will be some merging of bikes, the bikes are going straight, and there could be traffic coming off the bridge that want to go to Marshall. So
Right.
they'd be heading
That's what
out.
I was seeing in here when I looked at the DDI. I was still seeing that there's still a possibility of crossing over in front of or over top of a biker, so that would just be a concern. I guess I'd have to understand that a little bit better, but it's horrible right now.
Right. We will monitor that, and certainly it's happening now, because bikes come across, and I've watched the bikes on occasion, and about half of them actually travel in the travel lane, and about half go up on the sidewalk. So now it'll be interesting, because over the bridge, they're going to be on the inside instead of on the outside, so they'll have the crossover as well. So we'll see how it all plays out. Hopefully it functions better than it's been. Okay, sorry about that. So just to take all those comments that we had and show you what we've included, what we haven't. McCaslin noise abatement. I can do it like that. We've included that in the plan, and there's a note on the plan. Speeding on the daily, we had a comment about that, and actually we'll be looking at that as part of our improvements in that neighborhood. They're scheduled for either this year or next year. So when we reconstruct the roads, we may add some traffic calming features to address that. Call and ride that's still part of the plan as far along with the changes to 228. We'll evaluate the carpool areas. This is something, we have the managed lanes, so HOV lanes, so where do you meet up to carpool? And so that's something we'll look for a spot. I mean, there's the marketplace, there's the town center, if there's lots that are underutilized, we'll see. I mean, people want us to formalize that, and that's something that we'll have to evaluate. Colton, Indiana had an ADA issue that we'll take care of. Speeding on Torrey's Peak, there's speeding on a number of neighborhood streets that we have to look at. 76 car improvements, we included those. 88th Street sidewalk on the east side, and that's right now what's the development on that side?
Hilarious.
So those people, to get to Monarch, how do they walk? There's a shoulder there. And the question is, though, that east side of 88th Street. Do we wait for development, or do we move forward with a project? There's two issues there. Not only, there's a sidewalk and a bike lane issue, but there's no turn lanes on 88th. And just reviewing accidents in the last couple of months, I noticed there were several accidents at Shamrock for traffic southbound that doesn't have a left turn lane at the Shamrock. They're stopping and the traffic behind them are hitting them. And at Waldonia, you have traffic northbound that wants to make a turn left, you have people behind them coming up and hitting them. So there's been accidents occurring, and we have quite a bit of traffic on 88th with no turn lanes at those two intersections. Indiana Rock Creek Parkway, I think we took care of that? No. If not, we'll be taking care of that next year with the improvements to Indiana. And then Rock Creek Colton Circle, we'll look at solutions to that. Some of the ones we didn't, actually, we're going to be including this town shuttle. We have recommendation from the TSC that I'll present in a minute. We had suggestion from Colton, Indiana roundabout, one at Rock Creek Parkway in Coleridge, Rock Creek Parkway at Horizon. So we did have requests for other roundabouts that we have not included. And then restrict movements from Coal Creek Crossing, the new Coal Creek Crossing going on to Coal Creek, and we'll evaluate that, I guess, after Coal Creek Crossing is built, to see if that's an issue. TSC recommendations, this was back in March. They wanted us to coordinate the McCaslin-Marshall improvements with the DDI in the town center, which we're doing, provide a gateway, transition from the DDI. They want a warm and cozy, welcoming tone to that intersection. So, 76th Street parking and restriping, we include that in the plan. South Superior access, we just have the option one, the Second Avenue access, bridge replacement. McCaslin High Plains is already built. That's done. And McCaslin Corridor Vision, they didn't like the idea of the medians, but they were okay with including one or two roundabouts and provide separated trails. So this is this came out of a meeting last night with the Traffic and Safety Committee, and they wanted us to insert language that the town of Superior should undertake a feasibility study of a town-wide shuttle, which may operate independently of RTD and should circulate among all major developments and transit stops, including Superior Marketplace, the town center, Rock Creek Village, McCaslin Park and Ride, and over to Flatirons Crossing. So we're going to find a place to insert that. And then the other thing, in terms of the trails map description, that trails map is updated every year through ProStack and OSAC and town staff, so we'll just to make a note on that plan. In terms of town center, we included the revised street network from the town center, the connection to Discovery Parkway, and a potential Campus Drive connection. So this is the actual street plan. So just go over what we added. DDI was in there. We've added completing the Collector Street on 76th Street, a four-way stop at Sycamore. Here's the new street layout for the town center with a potential connection to Campus Drive, potential connection to Discovery Parkway. A study of noise mitigation in the Christensen area and in the Indiana area, future roundabout at Indiana, future roundabout at 128. At Coal Creek, we've added this note in case the volumes on Coal Creek start growing and it becomes more difficult to come out on Coal Creek, looking at either a traffic signal or a roundabout as a potential measure to help people get out of Coal Creek. We also included 88th improvements. So I think that's most of them that you've seen. Trails map, the only reason, we did make a change here, and I don't know if you've seen this, but so a suggestion that the design-build team came back on the US 36 bikeway. The original plan, and this was an idea that Louisville came up with that I never thought made any sense. The bikeway was supposed to come along Dyer Road up to Dillon, and along Dillon, crossing all the driveways here, cross McCaslin at grade, cross all the driveways here, and hook up back at the Coal Creek Bridge under US 36. The team found a way that they could sneak the bikeway under the McCaslin Bridge, because they're going to do some winding on the other side. If you noticed on the north side of that bridge, it's kind of sloping, so they're going to pull that slope away. There's concrete. They're going to pull that away and make it more vertical. And they felt they could, in doing that, they were able to put an underpass here. So what they would do is provide a connection from the bridge along that triangle strip here, if you remember where that is, go under the off-ramp. The off-ramp comes up, so they put a new underpass under the off-ramp, go under the McCaslin Bridge, and then we have an underpass here where the buses go under the on-ramp, so they would go under with the buses and then hook up to the park and ride and then hug the turnpike going all the way up. So Louisville was okay with that, so it looks like that's going to change. So we changed our plan just to reflect that. So with that, those summarizes the changes. You got a new plan in front of you. I know there's a lot to digest here, and certainly we can entertain comments. And if you think there's things missing or whatever, I think we have some time to come back at our next meeting to make those revisions. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to start?
Well, can I have just questions?
Sure.
Okay,
Commissioner Master.
so I have some questions. Let me start with the triple left. So the triple left has been a concept out there for some time now because there is a known, long-time issue of egress from original town. At the same time, there is clearly an established pattern of traffic that as soon as it turns left from Marshall northbound onto McCaslin, many people, and I'm among them, and I watch many people around me every day, immediately jockey to the right, changing lanes to proceed. I've even sent to the Transportation Committee and to you all what is conceivably a very workable proof of concept of getting that third lane left that combines the left and the straight across McCaslin that does not need $1 million, that needs restriping, keeps the right turn lane as it is because the right turn is not the issue. You don't have a lot at this point. It may change in time with Town Center, but you don't have a lot that proceeds straight across. And in all the thousands of times I've gone through that intersection, that combined third lane that would be straight and a left turn, with that left turn then proceeding to the on-ramp for 36, is pretty well balanced. And so to see that, I mean, even 3 weeks ago, we're not even in the holidays yet, that one lane was so backed up, you couldn't even come off from 2nd Avenue, much less forget First Avenue most times of the day. So I'm trying to understand how something that's been out there, and we've discussed it for a couple of years, there's been a general, and at least from what I've seen, a general thumbs up, and yet it got blown into this other, more expanded plan that I felt doesn't really stick to the issue, which is trying to egress north. And, you know, where are we on it looks like it's just been eliminated now, and yet that problem is going to persist, and it's going to get worse. And I think we have the space there and the number of lanes where this is a simple reconfiguration that could help a lot and not cost very much and prove out the concept.
That concept is coming back because, we had the ultimate plan, and the reason why we had that ultimate plan is there was this ramp funding out there that we thought we had a good chance because it was coordinating with the DDI. So if we're going to get that money, we thought, well, let's go after the ultimate plan. That's why we developed that plan. It was a $1 million grant application. Okay, by the wayside now. So now we got to go out. All right, now what do we do? To do anything in terms of the triple left, we needed to move that pole on the northeast corner because we need adequate space for the traffic to turn, for three vehicles side by side to turn. So that's why I explained what we're going to try to do in conjunction with the DDI. We're going to move the pole, we'll move that. So now we're set up for the triple left. And so now I am thinking about exactly what you're doing. Maybe we try out the triple left with a combined through left.
Right.
When you do that, you sacrifice some timing of the whole intersection because you have to go to what's called a split phase.
Right.
So that eastbound approach all goes at one time, and the westbound approach all goes at one time.
Right.
And you end up adding an additional yellow, all red cycle. So you may end up adding, you need another 4 seconds, which subtracts out from other movements. Not so bad in the short term.
It could actually decrease, if we can clear the traffic going from the west side northbound, because now we have better allotted it across 3 lanes, we may be surprised that we actually clear it and we actually end up with a time savings. Because that backup is so severe that, and it's just that one lane, that if we actually got traffic equalized across 3, we may actually make up time that balances I guess I look at this and say, this should certainly come a whole lot sooner than any double left coming from westbound Marshall to southbound McCaslin, right? This way outbalances that. But I think we could actually end up with a little bit of a time reduction by getting a better balance across those lanes.
So I think CDOT was resistant to that concept because they were worried about how it would function with the interchange. But that came before the whole DDI concept came about. So I need to make sure it could work with the DDI volumes. I think it's something that I'm definitely considering in the short term because we don't have the $1 million money, for the long term. And again, maybe we implement that. If it works, maybe that's all we have to do.
Yeah.
So that's certainly something that would work. One fear we do have is that it's a town center. Right now, the westbound approach doesn't have a whole lot of traffic on it.
Right.
But when the town center, that could change with the town center. But in the interim, it could be several years before that.
And like I say, we already know we have the back out up on McCaslin to never address it is not going to get us anywhere. So it either has to be addressed by a third, I don't know what the answer is, but for our marketplace to continue to thrive and do well, we've got to sort out that backup that can go easily to Sycamore on an afternoon.
So maybe sooner than you think.
Okay. Well, then I guess I don't understand how it's like just not even on the list. I mean, we've got now this kind of list, right? And it's like not even there. Unless I'm misunderstanding what slide ideas to include. and then the need direction. So we don't have triple left on either of those. I just want to make sure that it stays, in some level of focus.
Yeah. Well, Lisa, why don't you make a note, we'll add either the Marshall or the McCaslin to say we're going to improve that intersection, and maybe even a note on the plan itself. There are improvements that are coming for that intersection. I think I was always assuming that that's part of it, so it was taken
Oh, okay,
again.
yeah, I didn't know if that's what, okay, thank you.
I just have a follow-up to that same turn. So can you show what you were thinking about with bikes going through there? I didn't really get I'm just not seeing it.
At the DDR or?
Well, making that left off of Marshall. I thought you talked about that, and it kind of went through it, and I sort of missed what you were proposing. And I guess if you could talk about if we do this idea of a third lane going straight or left, what the thinking would be. It just seems like a really dangerous intersection for bikes.
Dangerous intersection.
So if that third lane became a straight and left.
Everything is jammed in there.
Right here, instead of adding this lane,
Yeah, so let's say we're not going to do that, because it seems like we're leaning probably towards,
so this lane would be a through left, so you would have...
or no, that third lane would be a through, straight or left, right? So that's one.
So this would be the right turn lane.
That would stay
Yeah,
right turn.
That would be through left.
And it wouldn't be a straight, right?
Right.
So what would bikes do there? Where would they, where do you expect them to go?
I think one of the, and I'm not sure it was shown here, but, and that's another interesting thing about where bikes go, because we have bike lanes on Marshall.
Yeah, and that bike lane comes down this lane, or let's see, it comes down.
No, it kind of ends back here.
Oh, it does end, doesn't it? Yeah, we don't have, yeah, you're right, it does end back there.
And this plan did, we felt by adding this lane, we would add enough pavement to at least get that bike lane down through here and accommodate that probably in this area here.
And so now they're just merging in with traffic and...
Right, they just merged back here. I think maybe the concept was this was a multi-use trail.
But there's no merge onto it, there's no way to merge onto that from...
And maybe we need to
From the
put bike
road.
ramps or something, because that's kind of struck me. We have bike lanes up here, but they
It just
kind of
goes right,
end.
right.
We all stop and get off.
Maybe they're supposed to stop at Sycamore and you get off.
And if we're thinking about, so the diverging diamond is the desire then to merge them onto that center pedestrian? I mean, I know not everybody will, but some bikes just like to travel in traffic, and some bikers are fast enough to do that.
Yes, on the bridge itself, we'll have Jersey barriers, and we'll have a 12-foot corridor in the center of the bridge for pedestrians.
Which would include bikes.
And then,
No, it did not include bikes, okay.
No. They could do both, and bikes could use that, but we also provide 5-foot bike lanes next to the Jersey
Okay.
barrier,
Okay.
going parallel with traffic. So they're on the inside. There's the Jersey barriers, and then right next to the Jersey barriers are bike lanes.
Okay, so then if they come across, I mean, they're going to be coming the
On the
opposite
east
side of the castle, and they're going to come across
They
over here to the east
kind of
side.
come across, and then they come back, and they end up here.
Okay.
And then we
And
provide...
so then people coming this direction who are making this left, is there some way to handle that? I mean, we got to deal with the entrance onto 36, we've got this intersection here going into the town center. It's just, it almost seems like a place that bikes just don't even, belong, but they're
Not this
going to
one,
want to. I mean-
But there are a number of bikes coming north on the...
Oh, sure, yeah, you've got that as well, right? So, okay, so again, where would you just expect them to merge in with traffic here on this far right lane?
Well, if they're making a left, they would have to merge across the through lane and get into the left turn lane, and then follow lefts all the way over that. Or they can stay on this, over here and cross over if they're afraid to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem like it would be appropriate for us to include in our, I don't know what your list was, ideas to consider, ideas that need more thought. I mean, it's getting this bike lane extended, allowing them to stay in a bike lane if at all possible, to come up to this intersection, or at least provide them in a way that it's known that they're going to merge into a lane.
Yeah, I mean, in this plan, the ultimate plan and part of the grant application, we had contemplating doing something for the bikes on this part of Marshall, this portion was going to be more difficult because we weren't really doing any widening on that side. But this side, since we were doing widening, if we wanted a bike facility, we could have provided something under that plan.
Okay.
Difficult to get bikes through this really busy area.
No, it is, but we have a lot of them doing it, I mean, it's a heavy corridor. Marshall's has a strong corridor for bikes, it just, they kind of hit the gas on at some point.
But, it's a good thing about maybe providing some bike ramps, because the bike lanes just kind of end.
Yeah.
And maybe we have some wider sidewalks and provide an avenue, at least getting them up if they wanted to get out of the
Yeah, at least providing, I get it, some bikes are fine with traveling in traffic, but those that don't want to, if we could give them a bailout lane to get them up onto a trail.
Sure.
And then just follow the pedestrian crosswalks.
Right.
Okay.
So speaking of bicyclists, the other comment I wanted to make on 76th Street, where there's a consideration at Sycamore of a four-way stop. I like that idea, but there are a lot of cyclists that they'll come down Marshall. They won't continue along Marshall like in Costco area and stuff like that. They'll actually be turning down 76th, and I just have a feeling they're going to blow through it. There are lots of cyclists that are...
On Cold Creek, they're doing that now. They go down along Cold Creek and they blow through the stop signs. That's...
But anyway, that's just my comment. I'm kind of concerned. I'm not sure totally what we're buying with a four-way stop. We have concerns of the pedestrians.
Well, you have pedestrian access to the park. You have the park on
Right,
the other
but
side.
with the median and the raised stuff, that really greatly, in a good way, Alex, really enhances that, and I think really sets that very well now for the more pedestrian-friendly part. I think the median serves very well because that will now further discourage those monster large shipping trucks coming down that way. And of course, I'm also advocating signage that actually directs them back up to Marshall northward. But I have my concerns as to that four-way stop because I think it'll be abused. And so that, knowing it would be abused, does that make it a good thing to do? I think you put in some really good things that answer for the pedestrian access.
My personal opinion is that you have a pedestrian issue, and you have all the kids that live over on Sagamore, and you have a park over there, and you don't have a good way crossing 76th Street. So I'd rather provide them a way of getting across, and if the bikes blow through, they're blowing through at 10, 15 miles an hour, and a bike might get hit, but it's his fault. So that's kind of my personal feeling about
Okay.
that.
Other questions?
Comment.
Okay, Commissioner Soto.
Well, thank you, Alex. I thought that was a really good presentation. I'm really happy to see that the roundabout at Indiana survived the public meetings. It seems like there's support for that. You guys have all heard me talk about this in the past, but I see that every day, and I see that the motorists coming off of 128 onto McCaslin.
Come down.
Yeah, and they're hitting 60 miles an hour by the time they're hitting Indiana. And, it's fertile hunting ground for local law enforcement. I don't know how many people get pulled over, daily there, but I do think we really need to do something there, at least to let motorists know that they're, now they're entering into Superior, and they're going to see people running along McCaslin and cycling and things like that. And so really want to commend you guys for the work you're doing there. Also, there's, I think one of your slides demonstrated this, but there is a real problem with turning onto McCaslin from Indiana, particularly in the morning. Going south, it's nearly impossible. I turn to go north, and that's hard because we do have, like I said, the motorists are coming down really fast. I was a little curious to know more about your thoughts on the noise mitigation piece of it, because I think most of us are on the community listserv, and we we can see what comments are made there. And it seems as though, to me at least, over the course of the past couple months, there have been quite a few comments by people saying, hey, it's just getting really loud. I think there have been a lot of complaints about the trucks and so on. And we haven't really talked about noise mitigation a lot, other than something needs to be done, but we haven't really talked about what that would look like, and just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that.
It's more difficult in Indiana because a lot of the houses sit so high above there, and that's why I want to do studies, because I'm not a noise expert, and sometimes with the walls, if you put them in the right location, maybe the noise bounces off and goes out into the open space. But if you're sitting way above, to be able to get block the noise may be difficult. So that's why we do a noise study. What's feasible in that area? I think it's probably more feasible in the Christensen area because the houses are a little bit lower. You have a pretty wide area that already has some landscaping, and you can probably berm that area and at least protect maybe 8 or 10 of those homes. Maybe not everybody. There's some on the north side that are sitting pretty well exposed. It's going to be pretty hard to do those, but I think so. There's some homes I think you can mitigate. Certainly not all. And to me, it's let's get a noise expert here. Let's try to see what's feasible. If it's walls, how high the walls are. You trade off between these ugly walls versus noise mitigation. So I think there's certain houses we can protect. Others be more difficult.
Are those expensive items? Walls and berms and things like that, relatively speaking? I mean, have you even gotten to that point of looking at how difficult is that to put up a berm or a wall?
Right. I mean, we've done a little bit of that, and we can do more of it as we, get closer to that. And we have a lot of information from US 36 because they put a lot of noise barriers there, and there's some noise analysis that I can look at and how far they are from the travel lanes and how high the walls are, and they do have costs as well. So I just recently got some noise studies that we can look at and maybe apply to this area, do some upfront work.
Sounds good. Thanks for your work.
Mr. Reader brought up an issue about the speed on 88th, basically, and that might be contributing to accidents with the roundabout at Rock Creek Parkway. Coming down McCaslin from 128th toward Indiana, isn't that going to be an analogous situation? I mean, from
Louisville, the bridge, you mean?
I'm sorry, from 128th down McCaslin toward the Indiana Woodby roundabout, isn't that going to be essentially the same kind of a speed issue in terms of negotiating that roundabout, whether you're trying to enter it or not, as exists now with 88th and Rock Creek Parkway? Because that's also a downhill shot, just not as much.
I mean, it flattens out right at Indiana. You do have a platform there. I mean, it kind of levels out.
Pretty much downhill till that platform, and like you're saying, they go at least 55 down there, and if they see a policeman, maybe they slow down a little bit, but I mean, that's a high-speed go around, and so is a shot from Louisville across 88th, past the hospital in Monarch and over that pass. That's usually people are speeding in there too.
And that's a single lane route. That would be
a single lane, and we would try to make that a little bit bigger. I mean, the issues we have at Colton and McCaslin is it's small.
Very tight.
And the visibility, I don't know whether vehicles are turning or not. I think in Indiana we have the room there to make it larger, and it would probably all be single lane because of the volumes that you would have. So I think we can change some of the things we've done at the other two roundabouts to make that function a little bit better. You're going to have the speeds coming down, and as we did, you have the same thing southbound on McCaslin coming to Colton. You have a downgrade there, and what we did, we had the speed radar. What you do on the downgrades coming into the roundabout is we put medians in, and we put kind of reverse curves to slow traffic in as they're coming in. So there's 3 curves as they come in. all with different design speeds. So we kind of take them down as you come into the roundabout. That's what we'll do there. That's what we'll be doing on McCaslin at the town center, getting you down on a downgrade. And so we try to take the traffic and slow them down as they negotiate these curves coming into the roundabout.
Can you comment as to whether we're going to have more trucks of any consequence on coming down McCaslin off of 128 because of Jefferson Parkway? I mean, that...
Hard to comment on that. I know we're getting a lot of trucks now, and we'll be getting a lot more as Phase 2 US 36. I think you'll see the peak of the truck traffic during these 2 years.
Right.
But whether we get more with Jefferson Parkway, difficult to say. I think there'll be probably a slight increase, but I don't think it'll be that noticeable. And what's your rationale there?
I'm concerned about how tight the roundabout at Colton and McCaslin is. Because a few times I've seen trucks, they get up on the curves or the banked area of the core.
They're designed to use the truck aprons.
Yeah.
And we hope that would discourage some trucks. And where these trucks come, are they going through the roundabout now, the ones that have been going?
Yeah.
They're going through the roundabout and they have to go negotiate, and they're still doing that.
Yes, they are. And they're the big heavy haulers, it's crazy.
One of the reasons why we put the roundabouts in, discourage the truck.
I'd put a dozen roundabouts in if it was up to me. Commissioner Dizzle.
Regarding that, about McCaslin, I was interested in why that you said you've eliminated this McCaslin corridor vision, and just then, which was talking about the wider medians, which I understand, discussion between a median versus a roundabout versus other landscaping. I don't have a position one way or the other on that, but I was curious about the elimination of this, particularly when the residents in the top three considerations were speeding and traffic calming on McCaslin. So it seems kind of odd that we would eliminate anything to do with speeding or traffic calming on McCaslin, which was the original, I think, if I understand it right, the original McCaslin corridor vision, and just talk about noise mitigation. So, I don't have a problem either talking about noise mitigation, but I think we should leave something in there about the concerns of congestion relief, safety, which directly address speeding and traffic calming. And then the traffic calming is mainly roundabouts, which I like too. I like roundabouts. I think they're good, as long as they're wide enough. Yeah, as long as they're wide enough.
Well, frankly, I'd like you to weigh in on that, because discussing with the town board, if you know how the town board operates it, they all talk all over the place, but there's never a consensus until they found a vote. So it was hard to read where they were coming from, but it didn't appear like we had consensus for reducing the design speed and reducing travel speeds on McCaslin. It didn't seem like we had consensus to do that from the town board's standpoint.
Okay, so can we put
So
that
that's
back
something
in?
you can weigh in on.
I'll chime in. That was one of the things on my list. I wasn't sure why we did that. I thought I heard pretty overwhelming support for, and again, I don't care how we do it. I don't care if widening the medians or not widening the medians or putting in roundabouts or something, but I thought we were all in agreement of trying to get McCaslin speeds under control, so if people even just did the speed limit, it would probably be fine. That means we have to drop it to 35, so they'll only get 50. So I don't know.
One of the concerns was, how much are these medians going to cost?
Well, again, I don't think we're saying...
Well, we're not saying, in roundabouts. We're not saying price tag.
One at a time, please.
Yeah, we're so excited about it. I agree with you, Bob, that to me, it's just leave in the concept, which is what we're talking about here, that we need to do what the residents are saying, improve the safety, which is in speed and traffic calming and congestion where there are problems. So if we just say that we need to consider ways to make it more safe, and reduce the speed and not say specifically what we're going to do. I think we should put that back in.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that.
I would agree that as budget allows, we can do more. I mean, there are things we can do even with striping, to narrow lanes down a little bit, put wider bike lanes or wider emergency. I mean, there are ways to create the appearance of desired lower speeds on a road besides spending money on medians or all that.
Or as Jim said, for the ground for law enforcement.
Yeah, that too.
Okay, so it sounds like we're pretty much in agreement of leaving that mention. Yes, okay.
So we'll incorporate in the write-up reflection that we want to reduce the design speed through whatever appropriate measures are as we improve McCaslin. And certainly intention was when it needs to be reconstructed or, major improvement, you look at those things at that time. And then we would look at design speed changes or narrow lanes or whatever we could do to reduce the speed.
Or I even like when you were talking about the Indiana roundabout and the curves, to come into that, because, when you do come down 128, I know I brake all the time coming down there, and I can't believe how many people will honk at me when I'm driving the speed limit and trying to brake as you come down there. So if you have some other kind of ways to calm that traffic a little bit without having them be angry at those of us that try to drive the speed limit. So, I have a couple of comments about the document. Do we want to go through that now, or do I make those now? I'm not sure what the process is.
That's fine, sure.
On the, and I see in the staff comments that you added on the maps, Discovery Parkway potential connection and Campus Drive connection, which is on there, but there's no mention of it in the document. Not that it needs to be perhaps, but I don't think I could find it where we actually mentioned that. And I know Discovery Parkway, there's a lot of discussion at town board meetings as we went through the STC, and I don't know where we're at with that. So I don't necessarily know if we have to mention that or not, but I do think it would be important to mention the Campus Drive connection, particularly since, Louisville has indicated an interest in having that connection.
Yeah, and I think that's important because if we ever try to go for regional funds, if we have, a document that mentions Campus Drive and why we want to extend it, that would be a good thing to have.
Okay, that's a very good point. But that one I hadn't thought of, but thank you, Alex, that's good. And then on the bridges, I don't know if we talk about bridges in this document for sure, but again, Campus Drive, that's a bridge, whether you talk about under or over, it's a bridge. And then Second Avenue Bridge, I don't know if it's in this transportation or whether it needs to be other than the maps, but again, the mention of it, if we can just mention it in there about what we intend to do about that. Then I also agree with the pedestrian crossing on Rock Creek and McCaslin there. Marshall Road, McCaslin, I would try to move it, not have it there at all, and make the red arrow over solid red arrow, because like I said, I was involved in an accident trying to do the death merge, and then somebody pulled in front of me to the left. Then on page 4, under policy 8.1.a, it talks about alternative modes of transportation, which I'm all for, and it talks then in the third sentence about neighborhood electric vehicle routes. Then down in the second or third to the last sentence, it says, examples encourage the adoption and facilitation of additional alternative modes of transportation, such as neighborhood electric vehicles. I'm not sure why this was used as the example, or if we need an example at all. Because once you put in an example in, everybody tries to attach themselves to that, and either they want to hold on to it or they want to get rid of it because they feel strongly one way or the other. So I would just say, why have the example at all? That would be and then down into policy 8.1.b, the same thing, the last sentence, it says, reinstitute call and ride services with Superior, within Superior. Again, I think just the sentence, encourage RTD to provide transit services and facilities that adequately serve the traffic needs, are fine. And then take out the example. How we do that is kind of like talking about, do we put a median in, do we put a roundabout in? we have this be more of a design concept. And then again on 8.1.c, the same thing, the last one, it says, future direct route from Superior to Denver International Parkway using the Northwest Parkway. I'm not sure what that reference is to. It may be appropriate, but are we encouraging, I mean, I don't know why that reference to by using a direct route to the Denver International using the Northwest Parkway. I don't know what the purpose of that reference was there. And then I think, let me see, I think that's probably, those were the main ones that I had, because everything else, I was just looking at, one more comment, I'm sorry, I apologize for that. The table 3 on page 20, where it talks about roadway design standards and the widths of different intersections, whether they're minor collectors, major, or whatever, minor arterials. And I don't know how these all fit with, or if they need to fit with, some of the plans that are in the SDC right now. You know, is that separate because it's a plan development plan? Or do we try and hold as close as we can to these recommendations that are here? And it's more of a question comment. Thank you.
Can I just respond to a few things? Your comments on the policies are fine, but I hesitate to change policies at this point because the policies are already part of the comprehensive plan. So then you'd have a document that has different policies than the printed document, the comprehensive plan. So I hesitate to make those changes, and then we have to go back and we have two documents that...
Oh, the comprehensive plan uses these examples? Okay, all right.
So these policies, I think, are in the comprehensive plan. They have a transportation section, and they have these policies. They pulled out all the rest of the document, and so this will be a separate one, so the policies are here, as well as in the comp plan. So the rest of the things in the text and all those can be easily changed, because this isn't adopted, but the policies have already been adopted as part of the comp plan.
And I think that they just strictly clarify some of the thoughts that went into it. None of it's written in stone, we're all aware of that.
Again, I'm just here, those are my
I
comments.
understand.
You can, if you feel that's okay to make these changes, that's fine.
It was more of, I was just saying, drop your voice, don't make the comment in this document about specific ways to resolve it, but more just say, this is a policy that we're going to work with RTD and stuff, and then stop. But whichever works most appropriately, I'm fine with.
The reference to the tables, you're right, the table is really coming out of our design standards, table, like you said, table 3. They're very close to some of the standards in the town center, but the town center has a bunch of different road, street widths and so forth because of the diagonal parking and the parcels with wide sidewalks. So that's kind of our design standards, and PDs can all modify that. That doesn't need to be in here, but in terms, you talk about collectors and locals and whatever, so what is that? And this kind of gives you a scale for what the different streets are constructed or designed for. And then we also have the range of traffic volumes which relate to the ADT map and so forth, so there, how you connect those two.
I like that they were both in there, so we know all the different streets and areas, what they were associated with on the traffic analysis.
Right.
So zones, the TAZs, I like that. So I think it's fine to leave it in here.
Okay.
Thank you.
And by the way, we did update that land use table based on the latest plans we had from the town center and other developments. So we've updated that since the last time you saw that, and we updated the traffic volumes based on those.
Okay, other questions? Commissioner McCool?
I have a handful, just mostly comments. Actually looking for some feedback, but As far as the town shuttle, I'm definitely in favor of exploring, a way to move people around, more so once the town center gets developed, and we want to be able to provide a shuttle for people to move around town a little bit better. I think that the town center is probably the driver for that. Coal Creek Drive, absolutely in favor of not putting a bunch of parking up there, so keeping that similar to the structure we have now, where there's some parallel parking as you go up Coal Creek Drive on both sides of the street with the neck downs is a great idea.
I don't know if you noticed, we did change the classification of Coal Creek Drive.
I did know, I was going to say thank you, that's not even really on there as a major arterial or whatever it was before, so thank you, thank you for doing that, that was a good move. As just a, we're a big biking community. We have our access to trails, our, the Marble Bismarck, a lot of bikers come through, and I know they run stop signs, and I've kind of just come to the conclusion that that's what they're going to do, and probably 75% of them at least slow down, if I'm coming up with a car, and I think that's just, being forgiving of bikes, being the community that we are, I think is important. And so I think it's equally as important as we think about these intersections, how we're going to deal with them. And not that we have to promote bikes going, I really don't think we should promote bikes going through the Marshall-McCaslin interchange. I think that's insane. But I think we could encourage different direction. We have an underpass here that once Coal Creek is in the town center, once Coal Creek is fixed and the town center is developed, we can do things to encourage bikes to go that direction rather than trying to go through the interchange to get over to Louisville. Louisville bikes go this way. Yeah, it'll take it a minute longer, but it'll be a whole lot safer, to follow the London Pass, come and provide routes as we build the town center to allow them to get over to Louisville in a safe manner and provide signage and things to encourage that. So I'd like to see us make sure we do that. The flashing yellow you mentioned, I like the full restricted left.
Especially there.
Yeah, those flashing yellows don't feel much different to me than the solid green. I don't know. I don't know how many people you catch. Maybe a couple, get it, but.
Right, it's not a matter of what you think, it's a national standard now. Now,
Yeah.
all those types of things.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Require the flashing yellow, so.
Yeah, I'm more in favor of just restricted. There's been some really bad. I've come home. I travel a lot, but I've seen a number of pretty nasty accidents there at that intersection. So, I do like Commissioner Rittmaster's just in the discussion about the triple left with the existing lanes. I think that's great. The elimination of the crosswalk on the north side probably makes some sense. Let's see. Second Avenue Bridge, getting people out of original town on the other side, on the south side of the creek is pretty important, however we make that happen. I don't know how far off we're thinking it's going to take if we have to acquire Shin-Shin to actually create something, or if Charlene's property is going to actually develop. I love the idea of getting people out through that development if and when it comes, but I don't think any of us are expecting a 500-year flood to happen again, but that was eye-opening, what happened there. And let's see. You mentioned the DDI process is moving fast. Can you elaborate a little bit on how fast that's moving and how quickly do you expect that to happen at this point?
Construction's supposed to start in February.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Really fast.
Yes, I thought we were going to have construction until 2015.
Yeah, I thought we were several years off. Yeah.
Yes, it's moving fast. We're at the 60% design level drawings, and at that point, that's kind of our final comments, because at 100%, all we get to comment is whether they addressed our 60% comments. Can't anything new. And so for example, some of the things that have come up, I can get a map up here. I have a good map. talked about the, the star-to-star route where, we have a crossing here, we're going to have the underpass, so we're going to have a route that comes along here. That's that purple route. And then we wanted a multi-use trail on the north side of Marshall. Remember that discussion connecting to the underpass at Davison Mesa that they're building? So I saw the plans for Phase 2 construction here, and there's a steep cut right in this area here, and they're putting guardrail up there, and I'm looking at that, I'm saying, well, putting guardrail there, how are we gonna, we're gonna have to move this guardrail to put a multi-use trail there. So can't you guys do something else and put a wall in that area, so leave room for us that we can put the trail? And they came back and said, no, and the reason why, they said, well, the ultimate plan has another lane along US 36 in that area, and that's going to require a big wall, and a trail there would preclude that lane. I mean, that's what they came back. So, because I don't want them to put a guardrail, and we come back, take out the guardrail and put a wall in. Let's all do it now. But it's so late in the process, you can't get changes made like that. So they said, no, it's too late, and they kind of blew that off. And we had some other changes. Remember here, we wanted to move that. You saw that where the bikeway now goes over US 36 instead of under. Did I present that to you? Did I present that to you?
I don't recall,
The
yeah.
original plan for this was the bikeway is on the north side of US 36, crosses under Coal Creek at the Coal Creek Bridge, stays on our side because they put it on our side to avoid the golf course. So they put it on our side. And then that was supposed to go under US 36 at the cemetery underpass.
Right.
Okay. They came back and said, there's also a pipeline bridge. There's a pipeline bridge that goes across right there. And one of the suggestions is let's combine the pipeline bridge with the bikeway, and so we'll have one bridge that goes across and that carries the bikeway and the pipeline underneath. So then the bike lane's now going to go over instead of under, which presents a nice bikeway experience because now you're going over and you have a beautiful view in either direction. Going on, instead of going under a tunnel, you're going over. So they presented that change. We said, that's fine, but why don't you put the vehicles on there too? They said, no. You can't do it at that point. So that's the kind of change they came up with. So this is all designed and, make changes at this point. It's really difficult to get them in because they're going and blowing, and you make a design, it means they got to change all their drawings and all that stuff. So not sure that answers your question, but we've got, for example, we just got their maintenance of traffic plans, the initial phases, what they're going to do first at the interchange. And the first thing they're going to do is, I mentioned, going back to the one slide over here. They're starting on this side. They're going to close Superior Plaza, Superior Way here. That gets closed for several months because they're making improvements here. They're going to build the first part of the underpass. So this gets closed, the median gets removed, temporary singles get put in because they're taking the islands out where the traffic signals are. So they're going to move all that. So we're getting those types of things coming, and we're going, well, wait a minute, if you're doing that, well, you got to start moving traffic here. If this is going to be the through lane, well, you got to do something back here to start moving traffic over. So we're making comments like that. And you're going to take this island away. Does that mean you're putting a temporary traffic signal in because the island that you're removing has a pole in it, So those are the things we're commenting on. So we're getting the maintenance of traffic items, and then we haven't seen signing and striping, we haven't seen signal design. All we've seen so far is drainage and roadway improvements. And so we made a number of comments. Another thing that we're looking at, I can't tell you here, but eastbound off-ramp gets moved, so it shifts to the north, we don't have the loop there anymore. So we have a parcel of land, it's about an acre, where the off-ramp used to be. We never have any plans, what's going to happen to that area? Is it a usable parcel, is it part of the drainage? You know, what landscaping are you going to put back? So that's a, you know, planning issue. And we've talked, maybe there's a way to get a pad there, we don't know. I mean, it's something we've asked them, let's have a sit-down charrette on this, because there's a piece of land that, you know, no one has any plans for. Let's talk about what the future is. So that's the types of things that are coming in. All those design details, where the bus stop goes, because there's bus stops right now on the bridge. Have you ever seen people waiting on the guardrail on the bridge? Well, that bus stop, where do you put that bus stop now? Because the bus is now on the inside. So that all those details are coming forward. Yeah.
And so completion of estimated completion of the DDI, then if it starts in February, is that?
Well, they estimate phase 2 will be done by December of 2015.
Okay.
They expect DDI to start in February, but the DDI is not really on the critical path. I mean, what's driving that whole schedule is to get toll revenues going. They want to manage lanes in, and they want to start collecting tolls as soon as possible. They don't need the DDI to collect tolls, so it could be under construction for 2 years, it could be a year. If they start in February, I thought about it would take about a year.
Okay. All right, cool, thank you.
Another thing that came up recently, they have a high-pressure gas line going across the interchange right by the BRT. So they came to us and said, we're really having trouble with these underpasses of the bus ramps and conflicts with the high-pressure gas line. So they came to us and they said, can we move the BRT, the station, the pickup station, out into the middle? And if you remember, we had a plan where you would cross, the pedestrians would go under the off-ramp, and they'd be waiting out in the middle of the open area there. If you remember that, we had that scenario, and no one liked it. And so this team comes along, hey, have you thought about this? How would you go for this? And we go, no! We thought about that. No, we want to do that.
We've been there.
We've been there. And so that caused a lot of consternation on the part of their team, because now they got to go solve this conflict with the high-pressure gas line. So that was just me. So those types of things. So I get these things, I try to brief the board. I haven't been able to brief you, but there are a number of those design decisions that are coming through. The aesthetics package, you've seen that with the braided basket handles, whatever, that's still in the package, but we haven't seen any of the design details. What we've seen is drainage and roadway, and the other stuff will be coming.
Okay. My last comments are quick. So 76th Street, yeah, I like the concept of getting that narrowed down, the parking in place. And it's kind of, when you first mentioned the four-way stop at 76, I was like, no, let's not do that. But yeah, I think you're right. If we're going to try to move pedestrians from Sagamore to the park, I don't know if we can neck that down and, you know, create something similar to Coal Creek, but to make that a safe crossing when the time would be good. So that's all I have.
Okay. Other comments, questions?
I have a question about it.
Yes, Bill.
So the median from Marshall north to the light is going to be taken out. Did I understand that right?
Yes.
All of it?
Yes. And that was initial, they planned to put it back.
Okay.
But initially, they needed to move it so they can shift traffic through lanes into, you know, kind of narrow lanes and shift lanes so they have an area to work on the east side, and then they kind of work from east to west. And remember, we have the underpass, so you got to kind of close a portion, you know, drop in some underpass and then kind of keep moving over. I haven't seen all the way they're phasing that. I've just seen that first phase that they're going to start on the east side. But they needed to remove the median so they can start shifting lanes over. They're going to take the median off of the bridge. So that comes
That
off.
isn't very wide.
Eventually, the loop goes away. We haven't quite seen how all this thing changes, so I've only seen the first, second phase.
So my question was, they're going to remove the nice town sign that we have out there.
Yes.
That's my issue.
They replaced
And they
that?
will put it back.
No.
No.
Well, we won't have room, if we put the double left turn lane in, we won't have.
So that
room.
goes away completely, and we don't have any other place to put
Well,
this.
I'll have to. I'll have to see whether there's a place, but if there's not.
Across the whole highway.
Right.
I have room in my front yard.
Okay. Ms. Horton, would you like to make any comments? You've waited patiently for 2 hours.
I hadn't had a chance to
Come on.
review a lot of stuff, so. I'm sorry? I actually like it, so. I actually just came more to kind of get up to date on some of this because I hadn't been able to go to the transportation meetings and stuff like that. I think the only glaring thing that came up.
If you could just state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Michelle Horton. Do you need my address?
Yeah.
Okay.
Superior residence.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. I think the one thing that kind of surprised me that he talked about at the beginning was in regards to a roundabout at 128 in McCaslin, and I think that's a huge mistake. Mainly because while I agree with not wanting to stop traffic flow through the town, when we talked about speeds and people coming down, I actually think we need to get rid of the dedicated right turn lane that there is currently at 128 onto McCaslin to help broach these speeds that people come down there, because since they don't have to stop currently, they come down at even that much more of a quicker rate. And if you're talking about putting a roundabout, horrible idea. I mean, first off, because people don't stop when there's a roundabout. And now you're just only adding to the problem. So personally, I think that I would like to see the town move towards eliminating that idea. I hope that CDOT strikes it down if anybody did proceed, because I think it's just, it's a poor thought. It's not really kind of taking into picture the big hope that I think everybody's trying to say, that let's keep McCaslin moving, but let's look and see what we can do to protect the safety of the residents and the properties. So, but otherwise, I think it's interesting. It's great to see how it's been going the past 2 years, so thanks.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Other comments, questions from the board, commission?
I'd like to put the town sign at the roundabout in Indiana. Nice solution for everybody.
At least they don't have another home. That's an interesting idea, though, because it does make people realize they're coming into a town. Yes.
So at this point, you're looking for some direction from us to move this forward to the board with the comments that we've made. I think we've all made a variety of comments and notes. Do we want to formulate a list of what would be your recommendation on how we proceed?
Well, what I think is we have a lot of what I would say comments that I think need to be sort of tallied up and then maybe given to you as a draft. And we,
I think we have time by the next meeting and before the board meeting that we could, listen to the tape, try to incorporate your comments here, do a red line version, and come back, and then you can take a final review.
Are you talking about a red line version to the plan or a list of comments to go into the plan?
No, we can red line this.
Okay.
Come back and then to see whether we've reflected, captured everything, see if there's any points that we had, issues about whether we picked up, articulated what you wanted in the document. And then, so I think at the December meeting, if you're meeting in December, and it shouldn't take that long, and then you can see the final draft and then forward that on.
Okay.
If it's at all possible to get our meeting with the town board and get this Jefferson Parkway question answered, I think a document of this significance should have at least a sentence or two about the Jefferson Parkway. We've got it on a map, but there's absolutely no verbiage on it And I think the reason there's no verbiage is because a lot of people hope it'll just go away, but I don't,
Right, and that was even, was a change I didn't point out, that we put it on page 2, as far as the existing roadway network, we showed it as a dotted line, and even that, we don't know whether the town board even wants to acknowledge it, so, and we didn't include it on the plan, and should we show it on the actual plan?
it's not in our town, so I can understand why it's not in our map, but it's certainly a big enough regional thing that's going to affect our town, and we're making decisions and making moves on McCaslin as a result of that, so I just think there should be some kind of mention, and given that the board is doing something significantly that we're not privy to, I just think that there should be a little bit more written about it.
We can maybe forward a memo to the board at their next meeting and ask that you ask that they provide direction on Jefferson Parkway.
Okay, anyone have anything else? I think that's a good plan to have a draft come back. I think that'd be great for all of us to be able to see those items and make final comments there. So, great. Okay, we'll move on to our last agenda item, which is staff announcements.
Lisa can,
Do you want, okay.
Lisa.
We had mentioned last meeting at the November 25th meeting, coming up on Monday, there'll be a concept planned for the Calmonte project for the area that is currently zoned commercial within the Calmonte PD. They are going to be presenting an option for 40 single-family patio-style homes to the board to get the board's feedback on that, if that's something that they should pursue. We are, at this point, planning on having a planning commission meeting on December 3rd. We're anticipating your review of the Boulder Valley Ice FDP submittal. And then at the town board meeting on December 9th, another developer is presenting a concept plan for a property in Original Superior that is near, it's on Maple between 3rd and 4th. There's 6 vacant lots over there. So they are presenting a co-housing concept plan to the town board. So we would encourage your attendance to those 2 concept plans.
Okay.
Can you elaborate on what a co-housing plan, what is that?
What they're proposing, and they have similar developments in the area. It's a developer that's done this before, but I believe it's geared toward seniors or active adults. I'm not sure exactly how they're phrasing it, with some shared spaces and then some individual homes as well. So there'd be a shared common area, shared lawn area, things of that nature. Fred, do you want to elaborate?
All I know is it's co-housing is short for cooperative housing. And it's such, and there is such a development in Lafayette. I can't remember the name of it.
There's one in Boulder.
Yeah, it's one of the,
There's one as well.
It's like just
Right.
surrounding
And-
shared common area.
Right, shared common area, shared common building. Common building also can be for common meals. So it's partially independent living, but also communal activities are in this particular development. They, I think, are going to propose a PD, and they may want to have a little bit more density than what they could get there right now, which is basically 6 lots, be 6 units. So we'll have that discussion, see where, we're having, had a couple of preliminary discussions with them. But they're going to talk a little bit more about it and see, because we're at a point where they've done some work on the kind of layout of the area, and we've had some comments with them, but it's time to, instead of going much farther, they need to kind of get a read from the board.
What's the permitted use of our alleyways in an original town? Are they wide enough to actually be turned into?
Normal alleyways
Access road.
are 20 feet. If we had parking for this particular development, some of the parking along, off the alley, they would probably have to give up, right of way, or give up space in order to make this work properly, rather than just trying to scoop people around, traffic on a 20-foot wide right of way. So that would have to, since they own the whole, or negotiating, I guess, to own the whole block, they have the ability then to create more right-of-way on their side, not on the side where the folks live now, but on their side, because this is the half block that faces Maple, which doesn't exist, actually, in that particular area.
So the alleys would have,
Well, and Maple, by the way, exists on plat. It does not exist physically.
okay. So the alleyway would have to be left alone, that's not, or
No, they can modify the alleyway, but it would be on their side of the on their property.
is that center line of the alleyway?
Yeah, or center line from the center line of the existing alleyway. We'd have to come up with a proper right-of-way, and they'd have to then divvy up, or they'd have to, they would have to give enough property to make a decent right-of-way in there for it's going to act as a two-way drive and all that.
Okay, but it would have to be an access road, they'd have to provide.
Yeah. They'd have to build it, they'd have to fix it.
Okay. And so that, the people who live there wouldn't lose that?
No, we're not into that.
That would,
At least that's not been
They could
proposed.
just
We
leave
wouldn't
it.
be into that type
Okay,
of.
they could use some of their land to make it a wider road and turn
Correct.
it into a natural street. And
Correct.
utilize the whole alleyway as a roadway if they wanted or something.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But it's an interesting concept, we don't have that here. Superior, and there are a number of projects around the country, some of them are modeled after the one that's in Boulder and the one up in Lafayette. So there is, there has been over the years, it's been going for quite some time, this concept. So we get a chance to see what they think might work there.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have anything?
That's all.
Okay, we're adjourned, thank you.